Morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Safest Family on the Block, where knowledge is power. I'm your host, Jason, and joining us today, we have the sincere privilege of having Dave McNeal. Hello, Mr. McNeal. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. How you doing?
Really great so far. Now, Soke McNeal is a legendary martial artist with much more experience than I've got, probably about as much more experience than I have over some of my students. You've been doing martial arts for an extremely long time, decades, and lived a long, active life as a protector and as a bit of an activist back in the day. And Mr. McNeil's on here today to talk to us about taking care of our elders and taking care of ourselves as we get older. And so I think I want to start with, as a martial artist, as an athlete, as a protector, what are some of the biggest challenges or lessons you've learned in those decades after your, let's say, your 50th birthday?
Well, the first thing would be, I think, keep on the road. Whatever path you've chosen, keep doing that as long as it brings you joy, as long as it brings you satisfaction that you're doing a reasonable job at it. When I retired from the martial arts as the head of the Goju Shoryu system in 2018, that was very, very, very difficult. But I knew that at some point you have to relinquish, the status that you have in order to turn it over to young people. So you need to also keep an eye on that as you age. I always said my number one job was finding my replacement, and I found a good one, a really good one, Soke Larry Koyman, and I think that you've been connected with Goju Shoryu for quite some time also. You're working with Kathy and Andrew Trento now, and two sterling martial artists. And, I've tasked them with taking the weapon system that I developed and carrying it forward. So I did the things that I kept on the path, looking for my replacements, because of Kathy. And I found these people, and then be ready to, at some point, step aside. Stepping aside doesn't mean dying. Stepping aside just means that you are passing on whatever it is that knowledge you've accumulated, or passion or love or whatever, and pass that on and make sure that you support those people that you passed on to.
And that's obviously, it doesn't apply just to your martial arts journey, but to your position as, what do you want to say, the silverback, the alpha male, the alpha female, the parent, protector. In my life right now, my youngest son, or my oldest son, DJ, is 21. He's athletic. It's insane. But one of the things is, and I'm sure you had this period in your life where, you were the friend who was the jock with a truck, which meant that every weekend you were helping somebody move something. And I've been farming that out to DJ.
Yeah.
Because he's younger and stronger and his joints don't hurt.
Right.
And I think that transition as a parent, where you were the person who planned all the trips, who was responsible for everybody's safety, who carried the luggage or whatever. There's that transition as our kids get older, and also the transition as that parent in the middle, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, where you're starting to take on some of those responsibilities from your parent.
Yeah.
And that transition can be difficult for everybody. And what are, in your experience, because I'm sure you've been in all of those stages at this point, what are some of the best ways we can manage that?
Well, it's like, if you're in a position of some authority in a job and you get a new person in, it's always easier, you think, to just do a task yourself rather than assigning it to someone else. And it's, I think, probably a little ego too, but it's a caring. And for your children, you have to, at some point, step back and allow them to try their wings, to try to put forth the lessons that you gave them, so that, I mean, you're always going to be there as a backstop, right? Our son and daughter, they are way adults now, and in fact have children of their own. And but you never stop caring for them. I can never see my son or my daughter without being concerned about them. You want to give advice, of course they don't need that. If they ask for advice, of course you give it, but your parental instinct is to give them advice, you know, don't do that, or I would do this, or whatever. But I think you have to somehow, at some point, suppress that and just let them do what they're going to do, knowing I want them to always know that we're the backstop. We will help in any way we can. That's what parents do. But also, you know, you want to, as one of the examples of raising children or being involved in a large family, is you want to set an example of good health, or trying to have good health. I've had a lot of health challenges in my life, but none of them were brought on. That they were just, you know, I'm as white as can be, so the sun has caused a lot of damage to me, and I've, you know, had to deal with those type of things. But just try to set an example, you know, to eat right, don't abuse your body, exercise. You know, as you know, I've been doing that for a long, long time. A lot of people around the country are doing today 1,000 push-ups or 1,000 kicks, and something that I started way, way back when. And that everyone needs to try to set that example. You know, it's hard to tell your kid not to drive fast when you're driving fast. So you have to, you know, continue put that out there. But at some point, they got to swim or drown, and you'd be there as their life preserver. And that's hard for a parent. Oh my God, you know, you're coming up on that. It's coming fast, right?
We had that the first summer of Corona. My oldest, he moved back in with us, and there was a issue with his unemployment where he didn't get it for 4 months, and then he got one big lump sum check. And that's the week that I had to let him learn for himself why you don't buy a BMW for $800 below Blue Book from a lady in a Walmart parking lot.
Oh, oh my gosh.
On the other hand, he's really good at fixing BMWs now.
Apparently so. Oh my God.
And you do have to step back. Okay, this is your mistake to make, buddy.
Yeah, have fun.
and I wanted to underline some two things that you said about how, you know, we can try to give them advice, but they're not necessarily going to listen. But leading by example is an incredibly powerful tool. Just remembering that our kids listen to us way less than they watch us.
Yeah.
And one of the best ways to give advice, especially to those young adult kids, is to just live the way we hope they'll live, because they listen a little bit, but they watch us all the time.
Yeah. And they'll be glad to point out your mistakes. And when you fall off the path or something. But no, you're right. That old saying of, I'd rather see a good sermon than hear one. And I think that too often parents, they're telling their kids, or hammering them. The kids tune that out. You're not three words in to a sentence, and they're wondering about their date tonight or what game they're going to be playing next. But seeing that example, and I've roped our son in on a couple of these physical challenges, and he complains about it every time, but he does it. And and I think setting that example is really important. And I think also you need to take care of yourself as showing that life doesn't end at 60 or 70 or 80. If you keep on the path, I mean, something's going to nail you soon at some point. But if you just keep on doing what you're doing, like Betty White said, she was kidding, of course, she contributes to her long life to not eating anything green. And but I'm the other way. I try to eat correctly. I don't eat red meat at all, and haven't for decades. And I try to do those things that will promote my health. And the other thing on that is finding the right partner. I hit the lotto, man. I hit the lotto on that. Someone that supports me, Marianne, is very supportive of everyone, and she will give her all to make sure that we're taken care of. And when you're in that bathtub of love and support, that can overcome a lot, a hell of a lot. If you're in a bad relationship, fix it or get out. Because I think stress will kill you just as fast as a bullet. And I think that, or as surely as a bullet, maybe not as fast, but I think you have to remove some stress from your life, or learn how to deal with it properly through meditation or prayer, or whatever that your solace is. Martial arts was always mine, and I know it's part of your life too. It's hard to sit on the couch and preach how to be healthy and not getting out and do it yourself.
I wanted to underscore one of the important things that you mentioned there about stress, and about stress will kill you as quick as a bullet. And then you corrected yourself to it surely, but at the same time, for most of us living in North America, that stress or the illnesses related to stress and lifestyle, they will get to us before a bullet does.
Oh yeah.
And that importance, this show is about safety. And although, some of those first interviews were with cops, with Navy SEALs, with people like that, violence professionals, many, many more of our guests have been experts in stress, in communication, in diet, and those lifestyle things. And that brings us to a point. I think a lot of our listeners, a lot of the viewers here, are in that position where they are responsible for some kids, and they're reaching that point where they're responsible for their parents a bit too. And what are some things we might do if we're seeing our parents making lifestyle decisions that mean that they might not be around, or they might be physically present but not as mentally present? Whether that's a parent who still smokes, or maybe a parent who's deciding not to go golfing anymore because it's just a little bit too much of a hassle.
Well, I didn't have I lost my parents when I was 8. And so I never have had that. Marianne's parents, she's one of 14 kids, so there was plenty people there to take care of her parents. But I will tell you that our fear, my fear, biggest fear, is being a burden to my children. I see people that they start to get dementia or some problem, and then they become the burden to their children. That's my biggest fear. If on the other side, if you're the child that's going to be the designated caregiver, or if you are starting to see your parents decline physically or mentally, I think the best thing you can do is give them as much support. Go over, and if you're close enough, many people are not, go over and take them out for a walk, or take them down to the local mall and walk around there. Take them to a healthy a meal. Make sure that they are going to be okay. Are they taking their meds? Sometimes we have now several friends that have an issue with their parents. They're forgetting, but they're not close enough to make sure the meds are taken on time. So they have to have a surrogate, someone go in and do that. It could be a professional or not, but you have to constantly worry about, as a child, worry about your parents, just as your parents worry about their children, no matter the age of the children. But I think you just have to be cognizant of, I don't know of a parent, I'm sure there are, that are comfortable being taken care of by their children. That to me is just a horror story. To me, from my perspective, as my children had to come in and take care of me, change my diaper or whatever, I would rather be eaten by a pack of coyotes than have that happen. So you have to do it. If you're going to do it for your parent, you have to do it in a gentle, loving way that does not seem like they are a burden to you. And I think just sitting and talking with someone, a conversation, maybe have them tell you some stories about their early life. One of our grandsons is going to do a series of recordings for Marianne and I of what we experienced. And, we went through, some of the things, the eras that we went through from World War II all the way to present. But if you just let the parents talk about that, kind of relive their history or tell you what it was like then, it does two things. One, it shows the parent that the child cares about their history. The other thing, it informs the child of the history and of what people went through. When Marianne and I were married, it was illegal for us to be married. And, that seems inconceivable now, but that was just it. There was no laws against prejudice at all. And many states had a law that you couldn't marry outside your race. And so I think by sharing your history, you're sharing your love, you're also empowering your children by saying, man, if they got through that, I can get through whatever I'm going through. We're going through, all of us, in one way or the other, the horrors of this pandemic. And it was equally bad when I had polio in 1950. There was, they shut down everything, theaters, swimming pools, everything. And people got through it. They worked through it. When Salk came out with the vaccine, People lined up. I had already had polio, but I got my vaccine anyway. But people lined up for that. And I don't recall any naysayers about that. Everyone was, very careful, but we were living through a horrible disease that is kind of mirrored what we're going through now. I think the difference is if you saw someone now, or if you saw someone then that had polio, you could probably tell. They were either on braces. I had braces on my legs for a year or so, or they couldn't walk, or there was something. So I think by informing your children of your story, it's that mutual energy. I've seen people when they get interviewed, parents when they get interviewed, their children ask them something, and they kind of come alive. I mean, they get energized by their history, and the children also. They're seeing, our kids are approaching 60 now, and they don't remember a lot of things either. So, by giving your experience to them, I think that's very powerful, very, very powerful. And I think also from the kids, are your parents still alive?
Yes, sir. We're very, very fortunate in that.
Okay. So that would be one thing to talk to them about, tell me about your life and record it maybe. And what are the things that stand out for you now and looking back? Our parents gave us life, and they also gave us a legacy. Sometimes the legacy is horrible, and but that's part of your formation. And I think your formation is passed onto your children. They have some things you could probably look at your son at 21, good Lord, and take a look at him, and you see some things from your parents in there.
Yeah.
And so, that you can't deny that things are being passed on all the time.
No, absolutely. Now I'm fortunate enough. I have one remaining grandparent who's turns 100 this year, and moved into a retirement home literally across the street from my house. And so we get to see her. Like with the corona, there's been a lot of hiccups in that, but it's we get to see her and hear her stories about growing up in the Depression, about being at home during the war. I'm a little bit scarred by a 4-hour road trip where she decided to tell me about all of her dating antics during her 20s.
That's great, man.
I had to break up with him. He just wasn't physically aggressive enough for me. Like, Gran!
God love her. I mean, there's the kind of spirit, man. That is awesome.
Yeah. Yes, she's laid in an order of 40 bottles of champagne for her 100th birthday party, and she's only inviting like 12 people. But I think it's going to be on May 15th.
Okay.
Yeah, same day, same birthday as DJ, actually. Weird coincidence. But I think that's a hugely important thing that you brought up about the maintaining those connections for so many reasons. That spending time with our parents, spending time with our grandparents, with the elders in our families, listening, having them active, taking a walk with them, encouraging them to stay active, even as, because our society kind of sort of starts telling people even around 50 or 60 that, it doesn't really matter what you do. You can just kind of sit back and let the rest of us handle it. And that seems to me poisonous to the mission that we have of if we're protecting our families, which is what the show is about, that includes all of the generations of our families. And to subtly, in some cases, or more aggressively if you have that relationship, encouraging our elders to stay active, to tell their stories, to take a walk, to keep doing the things that they like doing. I feel like that's really important.
Yeah. And as far as martial arts goes,
Mm-hmm.
I think the best, you're probably never going to have a situation where you're leaping in front of the sword aimed at your grandparents, right?
Mm-hmm.
And defeating the bad guys. That's never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I would encourage, if you have people that are getting a little old in your family, I would encourage them to join into the martial arts. It could be Tai Chi, Qigong, those type of things, because you're going to be faced. That's number one. Is going to give them community. It's going to give them exercise, and it's going to give them balance and focus, and that feeling of confidence.
Yeah.
So I would certainly, go to the softer arts, like Tai Chi, and I assume almost every community has a Tai Chi instructor somewhere.
Yeah.
Because at a certain point, your bones get kind of brittle, so hitting the floor too many times doesn't doesn't become pleasant. Yeah, they always say the mat never misses, and that's true. But I would encourage people to join into the martial arts of some sort. The martial arts has saved me several times, not in the kicking and punching way, none of that at all. But it's through the lessons that I learned through perseverance and concentration, and diligence in working towards health, working towards a better life. I think that Tom Callis, a mutual friend of ours, he saved my life. I had come back in 2004 from 3 months of surgeries and radiation and chemo. And I got to the house, I had to hold onto the wall to walk to the bedroom. And I could not do one push-up. I laid on the floor and couldn't get up. Marianne had to come in and help me get up. And then from that was Thanksgiving of 2004. July 4th of 2005, I did 2005 push-ups because of Tom. He called and insisted that I join the ultimate black belt test. Would not take no for an answer, and was fully comping me for doing so. And I took up that challenge, and persevered and came out of it. I think I would have probably just rolled up and died or something if Tom hadn't been there. So the martial arts helped me in that way. Another mutual friend of ours, Skip Ewing, I was doing a clinic in North Carolina, and Skip and I and a bunch of other people went to a bar afterwards, as
you do.
As you do, yeah. And we were sitting with an empty bar. There was a bartender, and there was a large area. There was a big round table. We were sitting at the round table, and Skip and I were facing the door, as we do. And the other guys were kind of oblivious to that. And in walks this guy, and Skip and I knew immediately, this is bad news. I mean, you could tell by his demeanor, the way he was shifting his eyes around, checking out the crowd. Skip was sitting to my right. We both scoot back our chairs and move our cane that we've been teaching out so that we could get to it easy. And I had my knife out, and the guy walked in, and he's looking around, and he leans over the bar to check the cash register to see where it was at. And the bartender, oblivious, totally oblivious. And so then the guy looks over at us and sees that Skip and I are eyeballing him hard. And turns out two of the guys in that crowd were cops, but they were clueless on what's going on. And the guy looked at us for a bit and then did a hasty retreat. And we moved over to the bartender and said, you ought to call someone because this guy is up to no good. And then the bartender finally tuned in, and I assume he did. The guy never came back. But that was how martial arts saved us the potential of us having a serious confrontation. Awareness. You're aware of your surrounding. How many people do you see walking with their head down or on the phone and texting or something? And just be aware. I won't wear earbuds outside at all. I never do, never will. I just want to be aware of my surrounding. If you have the parents go into something like Tai Chi, they will start learning those things. It won't be a particular lesson. It'll be the overall lesson of, be aware of your surroundings. So I would, because of how martial arts has treated me, I think that would be a perfect gift for a parent on their birthday or Christmas, is a gift certificate to Tai Chi or Qigong. That's also viable arts.
And that's a really valuable point as we get older as martial artists or as people. One of the things that I've noticed, I'm still much younger than you, but I'm noticing that my margin for error is dwindling. I'm just a little bit slower. I'm not quite as strong as I was. It takes me longer to heal from injuries. And so that margin for error is dwindling, meaning that I need to see trouble coming just that much quicker.
Yep. Yeah. But you are, I think the important thing of that story is you are aware of it. You're aware that your reflexes are not what they used to be. You're aware that in your mind, you think you can still kick someone in the roundhouse kick to the head. Your body says no, but you're aware of that. You're saying, I'm not going to do that.
Oh, I'm a Kempo guy. We only kick people in the head if we've knocked them down.
There you go. Yeah. But the idea that your reflexes, your speed, your strength, your endurance, your healing abilities all have declined. That awareness should be a gift. It is a gift because you're not going to try something that maybe you would have tried 20 years ago, but you understand what you can do and what you are still capable of doing. I think that awareness has to continue, has to be also aligned to eating correctly and understanding your body enough that you know when something's wrong, you're on it. How many people have we heard about that? Oh, they hadn't been feeling good, but they didn't want to go to the doctor and blah, blah, blah. Be aware of your body. And you should be also aware of what makes your body feel good, what makes it feel bad. As you age, here's a warning. Some things that you like to eat now won't like you. And not even a little bit. And it's kind of disheartening at first, but then it's part of that awareness that my body is changing. Where they say your body becomes a different body every 7 years, takes it to change cells and everything. But along with that comes maybe an increase in intolerance of certain foods, things that you used to be able to go out and do shooters. Can't do that anymore. It's going to be really painful for you. And, just be aware of that. And be aware enough that you go to see your physician on a regular basis and have a relationship with that doctor so that they understand when you tell them, there's something a bit off, and they will trust you. They won't think you're a hypochondriac. But you have to build up a health community for yourself. That has to do with the medical field, the dietary, exercise, all those things that will help maintain your health and help you continue doing what you're doing in a healthy manner. I think supplements of all sorts are vital. If we buy food from the store, it's pretty old. It's been on the shelf for a while, and between the time it's harvested to it gets there, it's aged a bit. So supplements are great. Also, find those things that you like to eat or drink, and but do so in moderation. I would have trouble starting in the morning without my latte. I make a latte every morning. Now, if the doctor finally said, "Oh, you can't do it anymore," would I quit? Yeah. If I thought the doctor was right, I would probably have to argue with him on the coffee. But I think you have to, as you age, and you have to take those things into consideration, and it's up to the kids, the parent, or the children, the caregivers, the people that care for you. They have to be part of that plan too. They have to be cognizant of, is my father eating correctly? Is he exercising enough? And doing encouragement through that end. What that idea of you're a nuclear family, that you have to have all components of that family to work well. If you don't have that, you got other challenges. You can make it. It's not going to be pleasant. You have children. They're magic. They're frustrating. They're maddening. They're all those things, but they are your children. They are your offspring, and they are going to carry on your name or your genomes. They're going to carry on your beliefs, your passions, hopefully. So.
Heck, even your mannerisms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Isn't that? Yeah. You sometimes you look and you go, holy crap, that's like an image of me. And it's really, I think, but it's that community thing, a family community. We're at a disservice now. Used to be, you had your grandparents were living with your parents. You were all in one nuclear family, or maybe your parents were the next farm over, or they were the next house over or something. You're always close. So growing up, you knew about that life is finite, and you were able to see the process and the progress of aging. And so kids understood better that how this thing works, life works. We don't have that so much anymore. We try to hide it. Let's put him in the hospital and we'll see him once in a while. Or we don't have that same community, that same nuclear family. So you should be, as children, you should be aware of that. Your parents are still alive. They're getting up to be a certain age that you have to be aware of changes are coming. I don't know of anyone that's got out of this life alive. And so I think that we all have to be aware of that. It's nothing new. It's what's new is how we are living right now. That's new. The end result is going to be the same, but how do we help our parents through that? How do we, as parents, help our children to understand that and try not to go early, those things happen, of course, but just try for both sides, for both perspectives, to come to an agreement. This is how I should live, and with your support, I'll do so.
one thing that I think a mistake a lot of parents make, and a lot of kids of older parents make, is underestimating on both sides.
Yeah,
One thing, there's the classic thing about you got a kid needs to learn how to tie their shoe, but it takes so much longer to teach them how to tie their shoe than to just tie the damn shoe for them.
that's what I was saying earlier. Yeah,
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 and I think that tendency, and also I think a desire to shelter them from the uglier parts of
yep,
life,
yep, yeah.
leads us to not prepare them, and is
Right.
probably one of the reasons that, because in our society we hide old age, to when we put a lot of effort into that, that
Yeah,
we're not as prepared as we could be
yeah,
for helping our parents as they get older. And then on the other side, I think that because we're not accustomed to seeing age and how age happens, because the way society treats elders, that we're not prepared, and we either pretend something's not happening, or I think we underestimate how capable our parents still are, and which of course contributes to a more rapid decline because we don't encourage them to do stuff.
right. Smothering on both sides is wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You see these helicopter moms and dads, but that's a horrible disservice to the children.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, but smothering, yeah, that's equally bad.
Mm-hmm.
Parent to children, children to parent.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so, in general, what are some ways that we can avoid making that mistake? Or if we catch ourselves making that mistake, knock it off.
Yeah. Self-awareness, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you have to be educated on the aging process, and from both sides. As children get older, they become more independent. You have to be aware of that. As parents get older, they don't become more dependent. They become more dependent upon the children, not on themselves. So I think you just have to be aware of that, and understand that it's not a straight line. It's a kind of a zigzag. You're always correcting course as you go towards the end. As your parents age, you have to understand things switch, things differ from week to week, month to month, and you have to be aware of that. But mainly, just speaking from a parent standpoint, don't smother. But be aware of when it's time to step in, and it won't be all the time. It'll be, you step in for one thing, and then a year later it might be for two things. It starts to progress that way. But I think do everything with love for your parents and for your children.
Well, there's not a lot you can follow up on that one. Just do it with love, and take enough care of ourselves that we have the energy to put into that love.
Yeah.
Because I think a big problem for a lot of people in that, somebody used the word sandwich at one point, where this was in the 90s. I think it was an article I read where our elders were living long enough that we often had parents who were taking care of elders on one side and children on the other. It can be very easy to burn yourself out and not have the energy. And not put the face mask on yourself first, but to do everything we can for our whole families, our whole tribes, whether that's your blood kin or some amalgamated Borg of humans that have come to be in your life.
Yeah, very same thing. I think there's blood family, and then there's extended family. My extended family is enormous. And we have a lot of people that call Marianne and I mom and dad, and they're not biological. And their children call us grandmother and granddad, or grandpa and papa, or grandma and papa. That extended family is equally important. That, like Larry Koyman has his school that's called Family First. The Chinese logo in Goju Shori is people that teach and train together become family. So, as I said, my family is enormous, and I think that it's the same rules, though. It's the same caring. Nothing changes. It doesn't change just because they're not your biological family. If it's someone that you care for and love, then you do those things for that person as you would do for your own biological family.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell a story about when I first became part of the Goju Shori weapons system. This was back in 2004, 2005. I was just a little white belt running around in the system that you were in charge of, and word trickled up to you that I was adopting DJ, my older son.
Yeah.
And you called me out of the blue on a Saturday just to offer your support. And it was one of those things that really stuck with me.
Good. It turned out well so far, right?
So far, so good. It's been a ride, but he seems to be finding his path.
Always is. It always is.
Well, it's okay. I want to thank you so much for coming on today. And before I let you go, is there anything that you don't get enough opportunity to talk about?
Well, I'm Scottish, so I cannot say in one sentence almost anything. It has to be extended out. I suppose my grandfather was the same way, and he never met a stranger. So I try to follow in his footsteps, in that I like to talk to people, find out their stories. I'm more curious about their stories than me giving mine. And so I think that maintain your curiosity. I read, I have 3 or 4 books going all the time. And I love to read, but it's about curiosity. And so I think as long as you, both sides of the spectrum, the parent or the adult, or the child, maintain your curiosity, not only about each other, but about the world in general, and continue being open to change. Change is part of what we do, and our adaptation to that change, that's critical. That is absolutely critical.
So curiosity and an openness to change and being willing to adapt.
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Silke, for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
You bet, Jason.
Folks, thanks for watching. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.